We're here today with Nolan Wilson. Nolan, welcome. Welcome to the studio. So, Nolan, we've been meeting people that have been drawn to our area. We're going to have locals as well, but we're very interested to know a lot about what's going on and what draws people to this. And it's been very interesting. We've been living here, and I've been living here my whole life. Mm-hmm. So this whole change of having a rocket in my backyard or in our backyard has been interesting, right? And there's a lot of interesting people coming. It's how I met you. And so welcome, and I'm going to try to pick your brain a little bit to see what's going on there.
Glad to be here. This is a great place to be. I mean, as you're saying, with the rockets in the backyard, there's no other place like it in the whole world, so...
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting times for us. Where are you from?
So I live in Austin, like North Austin, Georgetown kind of area. I was originally born in Russia, but I was adopted.
Wait, what? Wait.
Yeah.
Now, you see? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, right there, rabbit hole. But I was adopted at a really early age, so I'm like...
You're adopted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're born in Russia,
mm-hmm.
and you were adopted from Russia to America?
Yeah.
Wow, like 8 months.
Yeah, 8 months, super baby.
So you never lived in Russia?
No, not really.
Have you ever been to Russia?
I haven't, no. I haven't been back.
Wow.
Yeah. I hopefully want to go.
Are you curious? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's a pretty crazy place, so...
Yeah. Have you ever even try to speak Russian or learn Russian? Or?
I tried learning to read Russian for a while, but I had no real use for it. I would be much better off learning Spanish or something like that.
Yeah.
But that was sort of the time I was getting interested in reading all the documents that we have on where I was born and all that. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll learn Russian, and I never really did. Right. I mean, I could say the words on the page, but I didn't know what they meant.
Do you know what city you're from?
Yeah, Veliki Luki, which is
never heard of that,
right?
Yeah,
but I was adopted from St. Petersburg, which is north of Moscow, so it's a little bit easier to say and people can understand.
Wow. And did you land in Texas right away?
No, so we flew from, I think it was Moscow or St. Petersburg, one of those two big cities, into Germany, and then from Germany to Chicago, then from Chicago to, I think, Dallas, and then to Austin. Yeah,
but my point is, when you came to the U.S., you came to Texas.
Yeah. I lived in my childhood home, which we moved out of 2 years ago, my whole life. So in Austin, whole life.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why I have such a love for that city. I think it's the best city in the world.
In the world?
Great, yeah. Well, I don't know.
Apparently, a lot of people from California seem to think so too.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Right, especially right now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's 50% Texas plates and then 50% California plates.
Yeah,
if you have a California plate, people look at you different.
Crazy. And traffic. Yeah. I go a lot, and it's just crazy. And every time I go, it seems to grow. And I go every couple of months, and it just seems to grow and grow and grow.
It's crazy. I mean, downtown, it looks like it's remaining pretty stagnant, the size. I mean, the buildings. Right. I mean, you go to Houston, and the buildings are huge.
Right.
It looks like a real city. But Austin, it's just expanding out.
Yeah.
thing. That's why we kind of lived on the northern part of the city of Austin. And then my parents were like, nope, getting too big. So we moved to Georgetown, which is like real north of Austin, like 30, 40 miles. So it's expanding, but outwards. And then I'm telling you, it's going to go up. That's it.
Yeah, of course, it has to. I think it has to. And there's some really nice new buildings as well, though, downtown. That I've noticed, and they're still working. I mean, it's always constantly.
Yeah, the thing is, it's so hard to build stuff in Austin because the city regulates that kind of thing like crazy. My dad's in the land development business.
Yeah.
And Austin is just all red tape and
Yeah.
environmental studies that take years to get done. So that's part of the reason why, the roads suck and the new buildings kind of are harder to come by, but I think it's a really, really great city.
No, I love it. I agree with you. I don't want to say it's the best city because I'm in Texas and Texas has some great. San Antonio is awesome.
Yeah.
Austin is awesome. Dallas. I mean, each city has this crazy. Like we're pretty much a country, and we have some great cities in our area. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it. But Austin has a really cool vibe, I think, that is hard to replicate, anywhere. And I don't know how that happened, but
I don't know either. I just like the live music scene. Like there's always live music. When you're going down 6th Street just walking, you hear all kinds of crazy music. And you're like,
and what I'm really excited about now is that Joe Rogan showed up, and now it's going to be a comedy scene and a half.
Yeah.
He just bought a comedy club.
Did he already buy one?
Yeah, he already bought one. Last week, I think he closed.
Wow.
And so that's going to open. He said, I think it's West Austin. I think it's going to be in Bee Cave, somewhere around Bee Cave. Or Bee Cave. I don't know if Bee Cave, I don't know if there's a Bee Cave Road or Bee Cave.
Yeah.
But I love the Bee Cave area. But he said it's West Austin, and he said Bee Cave. So I am imagining it's there.
Yeah.
And there's another club that opened, and because of him, a lot of comedians are moving there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a scene. I think it's going to be like we're going to be able to go see the top comedians in the world.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to. He's been doing shows with Chappelle, somewhere in a amphitheater or something. Stubbs.
Yeah, Stubbs.
But it's super expensive because you got to do the test and the stuff. I think it's like $300-400 a person.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
So that's why I haven't gone. But and because I'm here, so I know I can go anytime. So I'm gonna wait till this pandemic thing dies down, and then I'm just gonna go see a bunch of comics now.
Yeah.
I used to go listen to a lot of music, but I'm gonna do both now. So I think it's gonna be. I'm excited about that. That's a really cool change for Austin.
For sure. Growing up, like we'd always listen to XM radio in the car on like car rides and stuff, and we'd listen to the comedy channel. And I've always been into comedy my whole life. So once I started listening to Joe Rogan, I was like, oh wait, this guy's a comedian, because I knew about his podcast before I knew about him being a comedian.
Wow.
And he had all the comedians on there and stuff, and those are my favorite to listen to, because you get to learn like the people behind the act and all that, and it's just so interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of them have these perspectives that are just crazy, and then you know, and how they think of the world, and how they put stuff out in a funny way, but they make you think, right?
It's still
and
very real, yeah. It's super cool. I'm so excited for the Austin comedy scene. I think it's gonna make the LA comedy scene seem like little potatoes.
Yes,
like it's gonna get so big. So excited.
So you're growing up in Austin, from Russia.
Yep.
And how do you start liking? I don't want to say rockets. I don't know what interests you about this. What is it that draws you in, or what is it that drew you in first?
So what first drew me in? I remember very vividly. So I remember a long time ago we watched the last space shuttle land in Houston on my grandma's TV, and it didn't really impact me much then because I didn't really understand it very much. But I remembered that. And I remember that it was special because it was the last one that landed. So that had always been in my head. And then I was ignoring doing homework one night, and I was just looking at pictures on the internet, right? And I saw the space shuttle and people standing next to it for the first time. And I was like, that thing is huge. I always thought the space shuttle was this little tiny thing. And then I saw people standing next to it. And I was like, how do they throw that thing so fast to get like...
Up, yeah.
Yeah, and then put stuff inside it, and it comes back. And I just started looking at videos of that and how that worked, and it really kicked off my passion there. And then junior year of high school, I applied to be in NASA's High School Scholars Program which you have to write an essay on why you want to be in it, and I just explained my passion, like why.
Do you still have that essay?
I do somewhere on my MacBook, but I rarely use my MacBook, so I hope it's still there. But I do have that somewhere. And then you also have to write a letter to like a state senator or something like that and all that. But that's what really got me started.
And you got in, I imagine.
I did, and I did pretty well, and it was a lot of fun. I wasn't obviously like top of the class or anything because they have some serious super geniuses.
So what is this, like a workshop or like a
It's
camp?
It's like an online thing. It was like
okay.
You have different modules, which are like different, I guess, sections.
I forget you're so young. 'Cause like to me, it's like that would have, if I would have done it, that would have been in person. Like I would have had to gone to NASA. You did it online.
I wish I could have gone to NASA. I mean, if you were, I think it was like top 5% in that class, you would get to go train with astronauts and do all this cool stuff. So I wish I could have gotten that, but I wasn't like top 5% or anything. I was just like normal, level on that. But we had one where like it was engineering, material science, chemistry, and then like math, and the math one was really hard. That's some complicated stuff. That's where the super geniuses really show. But that's what got me into that. And then I found all different kinds of websites that related to NASA, and I found nasaspaceflight.com, which is a great resource for people wanting to get into space. But I saw that
this is still high school.
Yeah, this was in high school. Like, I found NASA Spaceflight like just after I got into the NASA program because I thought it was a NASA associated website, but it's not. It's just nasaspaceflight.com. But it dang near pumps out more material than NASA does. So, I mean, same kind of deal.
It's a media.
Yeah, it's really well put together too, and they've got a Twitter, so you can, follow along on there if you're more into the social media, which I am now. But I saw that they were building a spaceport in Texas.
Yeah,
because I'd always wanted to go to Florida and see a rocket launch, but I'm like, I don't want to go to Florida. So then once I saw they were building a rocket manufacturing facility and launch facility in Boca Chica, Texas, I had to figure out where that was. I'm like, it's right South Padre. That's perfect. And the first time I came down was 2019. At least for a rocket launch when Starhopper was happening. So I got to see that. And that once I saw Starhopper like in person, I didn't get to see it fly. That was when I came down the first air they were supposed to launch and they delayed it because the igniter system failed. But once I saw that in person, I was like, I'm hooked, totally hooked. And then I come to find out that these crazy noises I've been hearing over in McGregor, which is where our family ranch is where they test all the engines. All
right. So I didn't want to, obviously we've talked about this before, but McGregor, Texas. Okay. McGregor, Texas. So your family just happens to have a property there, right? But McGregor, Texas, so is, if I understand this correctly, north of Waco, headed towards Dallas, maybe?
No, it's more west.
West of Waco.
It's pretty parallel.
How far from Waco? If you were in Waco?
Like 30, 40 miles.
Okay, so it's very close. Yeah, so it's pretty much Waco
very
then.
Close, yeah.
It's pretty much the outskirts of Waco.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so McGregor, Texas. What is there? What's the population of McGregor? Is it a city?
Not a lot. Yeah,
is it a town or a city?
It's a town.
Okay,
it's more a town than a city for sure.
Okay,
it's pretty much just got like some schools, some restaurants, an old school Main Street, which I love. They've got great spots to eat, great spots to like really cool antique shops, and then they've got a rocket test facility.
Yeah,
right off of Main Street.
So right off of Main Street.
Literally right off of Main Street. Like you're going down, you got these little buildings, and then you take a right. There's SpaceX. You can see the Falcon 9 from the road.
So SpaceX, has your family had a property there for a long time?
Very long time. Yeah.
So SpaceX took over the spot, right? There was somebody else's spot, but they were already making something like this?
Yeah, so it was Rocketdyne's facility, and they've been making rockets since Apollo. Like, they've been doing this for a long time. Now, obviously, the test cadence, so like how frequently they do it, picked up substantially once SpaceX got there, because the whole purpose of what SpaceX wants to do is reusability, so they test fire these things relentlessly to make sure they work correctly.
When does this happen, more or less? When does SpaceX take over? More or less.
I'm pretty sure they bought the place when the company started because they needed, or they were at least renting it at first, like a test stand, which was the company started in 2002, so pretty early 2000s. And then once they got that NASA contract to launch cargo to the space station, I'm pretty sure that's when they bought it, and then they started testing their Merlins, which were for the Falcon 9. And then Raptor development started around the same time, but that didn't come to fruition.
What do they do in California?
California was where they manufacture the rockets.
Got it.
They only test in McGregor. I've heard rumors. I don't want to speak for anybody, but I've heard rumors that they want to start manufacturing in McGregor, and that would just make sense. It would make the whole process quicker, which is what they need to do with the program like Starship.
Well, they're opening in Austin as well, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense to have McGregor, Austin,
And
Brownsville.
I'm pretty sure what they're doing in Austin is manufacturing the Starlink satellites.
Yeah.
And other
Yeah, I think
kinds
so.
of hardware because.
That's what I've heard anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, so Gwen Shotwell, the CEO, she was in some kind of conference where she was talking about the Starlink satellite development, and she said a big influence of the manufacturing process was off of the Dragon spacecraft. So I would assume if they're building Starlink satellites in Austin, they'd also build some kind of Dragon hardware or Starship hardware, like computer chips and stuff like that, because probably use the same kind of lines and stuff like that, but. Austin, McGregor.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to stop you because I'm an idiot,
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
said.
okay.
So Dragon.
Dragon is the spacecraft that launches on top of the Falcon 9 and brings astronauts to the space station. It can hold, I think, up to 6 people. Usually only holds 4. The first flight held 2, but it's.
This is where people get on.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they go to the space station, this is what they use.
Yeah, currently. They also use the Soyuz, which is a Russian vehicle, and then Boeing is trying to make the Starliner, but that development I haven't heard a lot about since their most recent, not failure, but hiccup. They had some kind of software bug, so they had to redo a bunch of stuff, but in that time, SpaceX has launched 2 Dragons, so SpaceX is kind of the focus.
They're like, there's a bunch of people competing in this space, but this guy just seems to be like fast,
An alien or
accurate.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is up with this guy? It's just, and I've had this conversation. It's just like a one in a lifetime. Well, he's a genius, right? One of the geniuses that's alive today. I think there's a few, but this guy just stands out.
Yeah, for sure. I think just the way he selects people to work for the company, the way that those people manage it, the way they do problem solving, first principles and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't work there, but they definitely are doing something different. And I think it has something to do with their crazy, smart, eccentric CEO.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
a
I
smart
mean,
guy.
you said you came in 2019. I live here. We've been going out there. It's how fast this thing has ramped up. Like it's
Yeah.
just been insane.
Yeah,
Right. It's
it changes every time I go out there every week.
Yeah.
Like they can stack a tank in through like 2 hours, and other companies take, like, for example, NASA with Boeing, who builds their rocket. They've taken 10 years to build one so far.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember there's a lot of design, and since it's government backed,
Right. Private.
flyers from all over the country.
Right. It makes it more. It makes it more bureaucratic. Let's say.
Yeah, and SpaceX, I think the beauty of it is they have so much resources, so like money and
Right.
talent, that they're able to just do things so much faster because they don't have to worry about, all that.
All the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So, okay. So McGregor is doing the engine testing.
Mm-hmm.
They're building the Raptors that are going into these
Yep.
tests that are happening here. Correct.
Yeah, they're testing them down there. They're building them in Hawthorne, which is it's California.
Right.
So they drive them out to McGregor. They test them. They test them a lot. There's Raptor tests almost every day that you can hear. Then they ship them down to Boca Chica, check them out again down there. They put them on the rocket, static fire, and if they don't work, they ship them back to McGregor. Say, hey, fix this. And there's the amount of tests that happen in McGregor are staggering. Like down here,
Yeah.
you probably hear. I think the most tests, I guess you could say, that you heard from a Starship was like they static fired it 4 times or so in a week, which is pretty good.
Yeah. So what I've seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, when they do the static fire test, they do it just once.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they might do it the next day again, but that day that they do it, they just do it once.
So the difference in McGregor is they, at least from what I've heard, like been able to hear, is they can test an engine 3-4 times in one day. I've seen a test stand go off twice. And
Do you know why they wouldn't be able to do that while it's like?
well, the thing with Starship is it's not a test stand. It has a bunch of other components and subsystems that need to be checked out every time they fire it. So with the test stands, it's basically they're just testing the engine. They know their test stand works correctly every time because it's a test stand.
Right.
So once they fire the engine on the Starship, they've got to make sure that the fuel tank's drained correctly. They've got to make sure the ground surface equipment gets reconnected, like whatever fuels the Starship, that little plug thing that pops in, they have to make sure that goes back correctly. And they just have a lot more stuff to check out. So that's why they test the engines at McGregor, so they know that at least something reliable with the engine, they can, check out all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously when we go try to see launches, we get how complicated this is because how many times they scratch that, right? It's like it's like constantly. Like,
believe me, every time I come down here, at least in the beginning, most of the times when I came down, I'd only have one day off of work.
Right.
And it just so happens that every time I get a day off of work, there just happens to be a launch.
Right.
It just works out really well for me. But I'd come down for that one day, and I'd be, waiting on the tip at Isla Blanca, waiting for it to go off. And then I'd see on my phone, delayed. Oh, great. Now I got to go home.
Yeah.
And we'd miss it. But the amount of delays, I mean.
Have you seen one yet?
Yeah, I have. I got to watch number 9.
Number 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I saw.
Yeah.
I saw 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 10 was the one that actually landed, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And but then blew up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It had some kind of leak in the bottom, and it just. But number 9 was cool because it did like a backflop, and it was a big boom. Like I was.
No, you know what? That's the one I saw. Sorry,
okay.
I saw 9. We were probably at Isla Blanca there.
Yeah, we were probably in the same
because,
spot.
now that I remember, is some of the engineers were there at Isla Blanca.
Yeah.
And they came over to look at my camera to see how it hit. Because remember the SN9 like kind of crooked and then blew up.
Yeah.
I remember they ran to my, because I've met some of these guys, and so we were there, and I was shooting, so they ran right after, like, can we look at it? Can we look at it?
Yeah.
And I, like, showed it to them. They were really pissed off. It was amazing to me because I thought, well, what they had said is, it's gonna blow, like everybody had said, it's gonna blow up, right? These tests, they're not gonna succeed yet. I mean, they're barely starting, but these guys were like I guess they thought it was gonna succeed. And they were very upset, and they were like, "Can you send me the images? We want to look at them tomorrow with the team." And it was really cool to see how passionate they are.
Yeah,
about this, and it was fun. It was a fun day.
Yeah,
those
engineers are the ones that make it possible. And when they see something blow up like that, I mean, obviously it's expected to blow up, but that's their work right there. They're like, I really hope it doesn't. Probably,
Yeah.
So it surprised me that it did blow up. I was really, truly expecting it to land because SpaceX they're pretty solid. They know their
but
stuff.
something's up, obviously, right? Something really bad happened last one.
Yeah,
the 11, that was crazy.
Yeah, so with 11, what I've been hearing happened is they have 2 fuel tanks in there. They have the liquid oxygen and liquid methane, or it's the other way, oxygen and then methane. And in between it, there's a common bulkhead which they pump a little bit of fuel into. They have one in between the 2 tanks, kind of center mass there, and then they have one up top, which is the liquid oxygen one. And to relight the engines, those are the tanks they use because it's coming in horizontal like that, right? So all the fuel is at the bottom. So they use these tiny little tanks to kind of have a pressurized bit of fuel so they can start the engines.
Right.
And
like a starter.
Basically, it's like a starter. Yeah. So what I was hearing, and a lot of people, based on evidence of debris fields, and then people got pictures of the actual tanks that I'm about to talk about. They had some damage to them, but that could have been from the fall. But what people are thinking is some kind of rupture happened in between the 2 tanks. The fuel got mixed, and then some kind of issue with the Raptor starting caused it to either not start or something like that, and then either caused an explosion,
right?
Just based off of it, being full of fuel. Or it was the flight termination system due to the engines not starting. So it definitely exploded, as we all saw. Unfortunately, not really with the fog. But,
right.
If that fog wasn't there, this would be a lot easier to diagnose the issue. But yeah,
it exploded on the pad.
No, so it exploded in the air.
That's what I.
So big. Yeah. So they're not sure if it blew up because of internal tank rupture or because of a tank rupture leading to an engine not starting, and then the flight termination system blew it up when the flight termination system's located kind of center mass there. So that would make sense.
Okay, flight termination system is what I'm thinking. You're saying they blew it up,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, this is,
They're like, oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And I imagine it's to control where the debris goes and
yeah,
maybe.
mostly.
Yeah.
And it's also triggered by if the engines don't start up or if they send some kind of breakup in the vehicle or anything like that through aerodynamic reentry, you know what I mean? So if it starts to break up, the flight termination system will blow it up and make sure there's not a bunch of huge pieces.
This is what I heard, and I say I don't know anything. So you tell me. I heard there's several of these, and that when this happened, one of the main things was trying to go locate them to make sure that they all detonated or that, because they could be active. So is that true? Do you know?
From what I've seen, there's only 2 little white boxes.
Okay.
It's located right there. See where that, center,
Yeah.
the lines are and all that. They put 2 of them on either side, I guess for redundancy. But it's a big chunk of explosives. So, I mean, and it's full of pressure and cryogenic fuel. So if they have one decent,
Both should blow up.
Yeah, for sure. But I think what they could have been worried about is they're called COPVs, which are composite overwrapped pressure vessels. They're these big carbon fiber, basically air tanks. They fill them with liquid nitrogen, but those could have been all over the place, and those are pressurized containers. Right. So you'll want to locate those. I even saw pictures of people on Twitter just like, oh look. Like,
they found one?
It opened up. Like once the road opened up,
right?
They'd obviously all been safed and stuff, but people were taking pictures of them. There was actually a Falcon 9. I don't know if you saw the video, but a Falcon 9 upper stage that re-entered the atmosphere over, I think it was like North Carolina or something like that. But it was a big, big deal in the sky. And a rancher found one of the COPVs on his ranch, and SpaceX came and picked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently, what I found out from these engineers, it's pretty illegal to sell stuff from the rockets after the debris. Yeah. Right? But they are showing up on eBay from what I heard also. Yeah. But apparently, I guess it's national security or something.
Well,
I don't know what it is.
Property. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. But they blew it up.
It's still their property. Yeah. They got to do all kinds of investigations, and the FAA is probably going to want to look at it because they have that FAA inspector down there for every flight. So they're being really stringently watched.
That was very strange to me, this last one, right? So first the guy leaves. This is what I heard, right? The guy leaves, then he comes back, and then it's foggy, and they launch it, and it blows up in the air. It's just a very strange sequence of events.
Yeah, I think it would be a really good reality TV show.
Right.
The SpaceX FAA inspector, like...
Kind of like an Office character.
Yeah, just something. I think that'd be such a great TV show.
Yeah.
But, I think it's important that SpaceX is reviewed heavily by the FAA. I mean, it's obviously harder, but that's on the FAA. I mean, SpaceX is doing everything they can, but I mean, I think it's definitely a good idea to have somebody.
Well, you have to have a counterbalance. I mean, obviously, this guy's going 100 miles an hour, right? And we've stated he's a genius.
Yeah.
But anything can happen at any time, right? Yep. I mean, we have geniuses in the medical field, and we have a pandemic all over the world, right? Yeah, so anything could happen at any time, and there should be oversight, right? And I think it's good. It's good for him. It's good for us. We live here. Yeah. It's our backyard. There's a lot of concern, as you can imagine, for the environment, and we have a lot of wildlife. Yep. That's a wildlife preserve where he's at. Yeah. So I think that definitely some oversight is warranted, and I think hopefully the FAA. What I do think is this guy's going really fast, and the FAA's never done this.
Yeah, the FAA cannot.
It's like what?
They're going way too slow. I mean, they could probably launch one of these things once a month, easy.
Yeah. Oh, I pretty much they launched 2, I think, last month, right?
Yeah,
it was 2. Pretty much in a 30.
Yeah, the gap in between the last 2 launches was like it was. They were supposed to launch on a Monday, but it got delayed because of the FAA inspector, and then it got delayed another day. I can't remember that reason, but it was originally going to be 24 days in between a launch, so they can do 2 in a month, just barely. But
there's one up there now, right?
Yeah, just got lifted.
So we're talking about this explosion that happened a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
and they have one up there now.
Haven't even finished picking up all the debris yet. Yeah, that's that's rapid. That's rapid iteration of design right there. And this new one, SN15, that's up, is supposed to have hundreds of design changes internally.
So that's where I'm headed. Like I said, I'm an idiot, but a lot of people talk to me about this stuff. So I know a little bit about what's going on. But let's take people through it. So that the one that blew up is SN11, correct? And then they roll out SN15.
Yep.
So there's obviously 12, 13, 14 missing, right? And what I heard is because the SN15 is, I don't know if it's a new design or a new iteration of the Starship, right? And so this is the new version. And if I got it correct, or I don't know, there's also like an SN20 coming, which will be like the upgrade to this type.
Pretty much.
Is that kind of how it? So we saw SN8 was the first one that flew, right? So we saw SN8, SN9, SN10, SN11 basically being the same model, if we can express it that way, right? And this is like the 2020 model or the 2021 model.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they're going to have another one in the SN20, which will be an upgrade to this.
Which will be the one they say is going to orbit, which will be using Super Heavy, which is that big, tall...
Yeah. That thing that's in the container.
Highway, right?
Yeah.
So the first ones that flew were SN4, 5, and 6. And those were basically just a water tower with a big weight on top to simulate that. It didn't have any of those flaps or... anything like that. And that it had the landing legs, though, which actually worked successfly. And on all the other flights, they haven't worked successfully. So the landing legs are hopefully something they changed with 15, because that's what caused the issue with number 10, which landed and then blew up because it landed too hard. But this number 15, it's supposed to have upgraded Raptors, supposedly. And the way people are kind of coming to that conclusion is based on... So if you look at the old Raptors and these new upgraded Raptors, there's a lot less wiring, a lot less stuff going on. And they figure they're a more flight-ready Raptor because they have a lot less sensing equipment. So they've kind of got the physics of how the engines are supposed to work ironed out better. And they're just a more clean design, I guess. So they've got upgraded Raptors. Some of the other stuff, obviously, is probably going to be, the computers are upgraded and all that stuff, so it's able to control its descent a little easier, so it's not coming in so fast. Hopefully, as I was saying, the landing legs are a lot better. Maybe better batteries and stuff, but it's hard to say what all of the new changes are.
Does it look different? Any like cosmetic changes?
Yeah, the only cosmetic change that I've seen that looks different is that little hatch up there. It's white now for some reason. Doesn't make any. I don't get why that is that. And then one of the cables running down is now bright orange. Not too sure.
Easier to identify or something.
I guess I'm not sure, but there's not many changes you can see from the outside that are different. It looks shinier to me. I think it looks shinier.
Maybe they've washed it.
Maybe, but I think they're still using the same 304 stainless steel alloy. But Elon has mentioned how they want to upgrade that as well to a stronger, it's called 304X stainless steel or something like that. But this one is supposedly still using the old alloy.
So the upgraded will have the SN20, and then so after these tests, right? Let's say, and I imagine it'd be very similar, like SN15, SN16, SN17 or something. And then, but after these tests, then they go to the orbital test. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it could even be fast tracked for all I know. The thing about these previous tests is, every time they've been done with a test, it's blown up, it's gone.
Right.
So if they land 5 of these, I don't know what they're going to do with 5 of them.
Right.
Where are they going to put...
We have ideas.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Turn it into a hotel or something. I noted when they were demolishing SN6, which is just the water tower one, they had just the thrust puck left, and I was like, turn it into a giant hot tub.
Right.
Do it. That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
But if this one lands perfectly, and then the next one lands and they find no problems.
So these are going to fly the exact same pattern that the others did. So just, what was it, 10 kilometers? Or Yeah,
it was number 8 did 15 or just under 15. And then after that, since it had it blew up so catastrophically once it hit the ground, they reduced the number to 10 kilometers,
And these, as far as we know, are going to go 10.
Yep, as far as we know. We'll know a lot more once the FAA documents are released, approving the flight. There's people on the internet, they go crazy over that thing and they just scour that and find out all kinds of cool information. And there's even a website called flightclub.io that simulates
what it's going to do.
Yeah. It's a really cool resource. And you can go to any launch that has happened and it shows you the simulation. It's really cool. It's a great resource.
Do they do like a side-by-side comparison?
Yeah, you can do that.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
a
pretty
really
cool.
great website. Yeah, it doesn't show like the actual like rocket doing it. It shows you like a dot, flight path, and everything. And it's super useful to be able to understand how orbit works and how these flight paths. It's not just going straight up,
right,
and then going straight down. It's kind of going like that, and then it coasts a little bit, and then.
Well, I mean, I've seen it. We've seen it in the air, right? Yeah. So you kind of see what happens, and it's very strange because it just like flops, and then all of a sudden turns on again, and straightens out. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy to see rockets in the air. I mean,
it's so different, especially with this. I mean, this was my first rocket launch I'd ever seen. I've never seen a rocket go up before, and I just feel like watching a normal rocket now is going to be boring.
So, this is the first rocket that you see, right? Yeah. We talked about how you've been into this since like high school.
Yeah.
Right. How did it feel to see it in the air?
So to see it in the air was something really crazy and mind-blowing. I mean, I've never seen something move that fast, something that large move that fast.
So it's way different than seeing it on screen? Because obviously you've seen the Falcons.
It's hard to understand, like, what it looks like in the air. I mean, I had been playing it out in my head, what it's going to look like when I see it go off. And it was just so much different. But what really blew my mind was, like, I always tell people this. I don't know why it blew my mind so much, but hearing it go off in flight was actually a lot more underwhelming than hearing it go off in McGregor.
Yeah,
in McGregor, it is so much louder and it shakes you more because the engine is staying in one spot. With the flights, the engine goes and it's gone.
Right.
You hear a lot less of it. I mean, you hear it up there and it sounds different, but when the engines are on the ground...
Which is crazy because when you talk to locals, especially on the island that I talk to frequently, is like they always like, oh, it shook. Like the building shook or whatever, right? Like they live there, so like my house shook or whatever it is, right? And people describe the sound without even being there. I saw the sound, obviously. I mean, I saw the sound. Yeah. I heard the sound when I was there, but it was crazy to me, right? And obviously how, sound travels and stuff. So you see it and then you hear it.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. And then the explosion, like that, the same. But the sound... to me, that was the most impressive part. And me, obviously, being an idiot and not knowing anything. But the other sound that was crazy to me was the sound of the people there.
Oh, wow.
That was crazy, right?
Yeah.
You were there at the same when I was.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Renee about it, and way different than a sports game. Like being at an NFL game or a soccer game or a baseball game. It was just... it was different vibe, different energy, but it was really cool. It was the same kind of sound, like a cheer, and it was really like you felt it.
Yeah, and it was so cool to see. I mean, it hit the ground and blew up, but everyone was still cheering for it. I was like, that's so great. Yeah, even though it wasn't a failure at all. They were testing the re-entry, but it still blew up, and everyone was just ecstatic. Like it really felt more pure. It didn't feel as forced, like, oh, they made a touchdown, time to cheer. Right. This thing hit the ground and blew up and everyone was still just as happy as can be. Yeah. And it's hard not to smile when you hear that. And even on like when you see people live stream it, like I didn't get to go to all the launches, but when I did go to, it really, the crowd noise is what hits you because it's really different.
It was that's the stuff that impressed me, and the sound, the whole sound experience. Yeah. So I would say that if you come down, that's gonna be that's the thing to like experience. The sound is just crazy, and I think everybody should at least. Yeah. It's I think right now it's been people like you that are really hooked on this and that are coming like no matter what, right? Like I have a day off. I'm driving down. But as this continues to be more frequent and more consistent, right, where they're able to like actually pad the days, like this is going to be the day and it's probably that day or the next day. Everybody's going to get to experience that, right? A lot of people are going to get to experience that.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be they've said the number they're trying to launch a day once it's fully ironed out. All the
Wait a minute, a
it's full
day?
production. Yeah, a day. They want to launch one 3 times a day.
That's great. From here.
Yeah. Well,
From the rig, right?
yeah.
Once they have the rig
So
out there.
they're either going to do the oil rig, and that might take a while to get built. So maybe a year or two, maybe more.
Will we be able to see it, do you think? Have you seen kind of where it would be?
They'll have definitely ferries that go out there, and you can watch it. But I don't know.
Not from land.
The difference between the Starship and what Super Heavy is going to be doing is Super Heavy has 24 Raptor engines. This one has 3. It's going to have 6, but
Wait, how many?
24.
24 engines?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to be loud.
Wait, so again, let me try to understand this. Super Heavy is what's going to be under. That's what's going to actually come land back.
Yes.
Right? And then this thing is going to be on top of Super Heavy.
Yeah.
And so it's going to get to a certain spot, and then this thing will detach, and then those Raptors will take off.
Yep.
Is that correct? That's how it's going to work?
Yeah. All 6 of... So that currently what they have on, or have had on all of the Starships with the aero flaps and everything is 3 Raptor engines. They're sea-level Raptors, so they're going to be adding 3 vacuum-optimized Raptors, which work better in space. They just have a bigger nozzle, basically. And Super Heavy is going to have 24.
How far does Super Heavy go before it detaches?
It depends on the flight profile, where they're trying to go. Like if it goes to Mars, it's going to want more speed, so it's going to go faster. But with orbital refueling, it could just be heading to low Earth orbit every time. But it really depends on the mission profile. But the Kármán line, which is where air pretty much runs out, is 100 miles. So I'd assume something like that, similar to what the Falcon 9 does.
This is another thing I've heard. I mean, there's a lot of rumors and a lot of stuff, but there's a contract, if I understand this correctly, for them to ship stuff to the moon.
Yeah, so that's a
current
HLS
contract.
Yes, so the Human Lander System. They have 3 people contracted at the moment. They have SpaceX with the Starship, a lunar optimized version of the Starship, and then they have Dynetics, I think is their name. I don't know.
Another company.
Dynex, yeah, another company, and then Blue Origin, which is a pretty comparable competitor.
Blue Origin, Amazon?
Yeah, pretty much. It's
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos. It's like Tesla, SpaceX,
Right.
Blue Origin, Amazon.
Who's got a bigger rocket?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we know who's winning this one
Yeah,
so far
right.
because, I mean, what Blue Origin is building is the New Glenn, which is a huge rocket. It's comparable to Starship, not Super Heavy, but Starship. And they're going to be launching their lander, which is a more classic kind of lunar lander design. And then there's SpaceX with what they're building. And if you go out to the site, you can see that big white nose cone they got. And
Where's Blue Origin going to do
Blue
this
Origin's in Florida. They actually
They're going to do it from the same place where the Falcon is?
Yeah, they have a production facility on site right next to the pad, so they'll be building their rockets and then flying them and landing them. And they even have a old, what's it called, like a cruise ship kind of thing, like a giant boat. And they're going to be landing their rockets on that boat, just like SpaceX does.
Right.
Believe it or not, Blue Origin originally patented that idea first.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was their idea.
Well, it's always been in
an idea.
old school media,
Right.
but SpaceX won the legal battle and were able to do it, obviously, because they still do it today. But landing rockets on boats isn't much of a new thing. But with the Human Lander contract, Blue Origin's able to ship like 6 people to the lunar surface, and it takes like 3 launches. With Starship, they can ship like 100 people with like 1 launch.
Okay.
1 ship.
And this is the important question. Are they going to do that from here?
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Most
So
likely, yeah.
so they might send people to the moon from here.
They want to be doing that fairly soon. They're trying to meet some deadline like 2024. And
So we'll have people from Brownsville fly to the moon
yeah,
fairly soon.
hopefully.
Fairly soon means what to you?
Definitely within 5 years. Definitely. Easy.
Okay.
Maybe-
So 2025, 2026.
Yeah, hopefully before then, but knowing Elon time, probably definitely within 5 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And even maybe by then, if they have it crew certified, they're definitely able to ship stuff to Mars. So that's when they'll start trying to build that Mars colony. And that is a whole nother thing. That's going to take forever. Like,
Yeah, that makes sense.
like 30 years to get everything shipped, get people there, get it self-sustaining, because that's the whole point. They don't want to rely on
No, but
it,
that's a game shifter. Like
Yeah.
for the for humanity.
Yeah.
Right. It's not even just for like,
They could even
that's
just
crazy.
do that on the moon. I mean, they could build
Yeah.
a colony on the moon just as easily and have it be a kind of a stepping stone to Mars. But they'll be shipping people on Starship, hopefully within 2 years. That Japanese billionaire, I cannot remember his name for the life of me.
But he paid
Yeah, he bought a Starship,
ticket.
all the tickets, on a Starship, and he's going to be selecting 8 or 9 folks, just regular people.
I'm a regular person.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the sign-up deadline has passed. But they have a lot of really good content creators on YouTube that applied and are making videos. I think it's going to be someone on YouTube because that's
Right.
new media.
That's what
you know
makes
I mean?
sense.
Yeah, and I haven't seen anybody in normal media like on TV apply or anything like that. So it's probably going to be some big YouTube person, and they'll be flying a bunch of them around the moon and then landing it. And they want to do that by
Wait, landing it on the moon or landing it back
landing
here?
it back here.
Okay.
They're only going to fly around the moon. They're not going to land on the moon. They might be trying to land like
Right.
manned starships on the moon by then to practice, because landing on the moon and landing on Earth are vastly different.
Right. I can imagine.
Yeah, but
There's no launch pads on the moon.
no, there's no launch pads on the moon. That's why Elon was tweeting yesterday that he's obviously pretty frustrated about the landing legs not working so far.
Right.
And one of the things that he's been thinking about is instead of landing Starship like landing it, they want to catch it like they want to do with Super Heavy.
Well, I've seen the thing that has the arms.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a drawing or an animation,
Yeah.
right? And it has the arms and it comes in and it catches it before it lands.
So that's most likely how they're.
What is
gonna
that
be killed.
called?
I don't really have a name for it. Just booster catcher, I guess.
Yeah.
They even have a job listing up for someone to do the software engineering for that sort of deal.
Really?
Yeah, but Elon was saying how they want to catch Starship when it's horizontal instead of vertical. And in my head, I have no idea. He did not share any details, but I'm like, how are you going to do that on Mars and all that? And somebody asked that question, and he said, no, that it'll still land on the moon of Mars like how it normally does. But then I'm like, then why don't you just land it here like that?
Right.
But I'm telling you, those landing legs are probably the landing legs and the heat tiles, I think, are going to be their biggest engineering challenges. Because coming up with a design that is few part number, like there's not a lot of parts to fail.
Right.
Because if you have one part fail in a rocket, the whole thing blows up. So you can't have any chances of part failures at all.
Which is kind of why they do these extensive testing
Yes.
over and over
Yeah,
and over
it's-
again.
it's better
It
to
just
test.
has us standing there waiting all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the advantages I think SpaceX has over, for instance, NASA with their rocket. They've blown up 3 of these, so 4 of these. They had all the little tiny hops with number 4, 5,
Right.
and 6, and NASA's only gotten 1 or 2 static fires in on their rocket, and one of them failed. So
That's crazy.
yeah, and that one's $2 billion per launch. This one's $5 million. I mean,
That's crazy.
there's a new way of doing things, and I think SpaceX is doing it pretty.
Well, I think that's why NASA's sourcing it out.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense for us as a country to be spending money when these guys can do it
For
You
cheaper.
they can do it a bunch of times for the same
Yeah.
amount of price.
Yep. And it's interesting that there are still so many other companies, rocket companies, that are producing rockets that aren't reusable. Like ULA, which is United Launch Alliance, which is a pretty big company. And the CEO is a smart guy. Tory Bruno, on Twitter, he's just like Elon. He'll reply to anybody. On
Right.
Twitter. Like I've directly asked him questions and he's responded. He's liked some of my stupid little jokes under his like posts and stuff. Really cool guy. And I'm very surprised that they aren't trying to develop a fully reusable launch system. Right now they're doing this it's called the Vulcan, and they expend the fuel tanks, but the engine section
Right.
pops off and lands under a parachute, and that's good thinking, but it's just so surprising that other companies think they can still be competitive and not have a fully reusable system. There's actually a company in Austin that makes rockets called Firefly. They
Make rockets.
full-blown make
Where?
rockets and rocket. Actually, just a few miles down the road from where I live. It's like Georgetown, kind of.
Do they
but it's not Georgetown.
they look like this?
No, they actually look like a mini
Falcon?
SLS, which is that
Yeah.
NASA rocket. They look like a miniature one of those. It has 4 engines. And it's a great rocket from the stuff I've seen so far. They've gotten a lot of tests in. They're like a really good mix between SpaceX and NASA. They're very careful, but they do a lot of testing. And they're pretty public about it. And they have a lunar lander contract, like not a human lander because they're not in the HLS.
Right.
They're just like payloads. So they launch like science stuff to the moon. And they'll be doing a launch here, hopefully, by the end of the year, which is...
Wait. Launch here. Launch where?
Vandenberg.
What?
Vandenberg's in California. It's
Okay.
It's a missile range. Yeah.
Okay, so California will be launching rockets now.
Yeah, well, California's been launching rockets from Vandenberg. The space shuttle was even supposed to launch from Vandenberg, but they never ended up doing that.
Where's Vandenberg? As like close to LA, close to...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's close to San Francisco.
Got it.
Yeah. But they've launched all kinds of rockets from there. It's a missile range.
Okay.
They launched those ICBM tests and all that stuff from there. But I'm surprised that a company that NASA selected to do all this, new age space stuff isn't reusable. And I think a lot of companies can take good advice from SpaceX and start developing reusable rockets. Like not even just partially reusable, fully reusable.
So, and I don't know if you know this, so I'm just going to ask anyway. But so if Brownsville could become a spaceport,
yeah,
does that mean other companies could launch from here?
I would hope so. I would hope that SpaceX would open up that kind of capability to other companies. I mean, right now at their pad, they've only got 2 suborbital platforms that are specifically designed for something as big as Starship, and then they're building. They also have an orbital pad, which isn't complete yet, but should be hopefully by the end of the year, they say. And then they're expanding it more south to be able to fit another orbital pad, and I think maybe another suborbital pad. I don't know.
But they just acquired a bunch more land too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would hope that other companies can launch from there, but if not, I think SpaceX has the right idea with launching it in the water.
Right.
Yeah. Like there's an old NASA design of a rocket called the Sea Dragon, which would be the largest rocket ever thought up. It's huge. It can launch like something like 150 tons into orbit, and
Jeez.
It's basically just imagine a giant.
It's gonna be like the F-150 of rockets.
It'll be like a semi truck of rockets. It was supposed to be huge, and it used a giant. I can't remember the name of the engine, but it was so big that you could fit the entire first stage of the Saturn V in the engine bell. This thing is so comically huge, and what they would do is they'd drag it out into the ocean and then fill it with fuel, and it would be so heavy that it would slightly submerge into the water, and then they'd light it off. And you know how when you see a rocket go off, you have the water suppression system under that, suppressing the sound.
Right.
It's in the ocean, so it doesn't need any of that.
Right.
And it rises out of the ocean, and you're in the middle of nowhere. So if it blows up, nobody gets hurt. And I think more companies should look into that.
That's been fascinating to me. I don't understand it very much. Can you explain the water and the sound part? Because that's been somebody told it to me, and it's very fascinating. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of explain it?
So SpaceX actually does it different. So it doesn't necessarily work for what Starship's doing, but every other rocket that's been launched, what they do is they have it on the pad, and then right before they light the engines off, they pump a bunch of water under it. So when the flames hit it, it doesn't hit the ground, and then the sound waves bounce back up at the rocket. And you've felt a rocket go off. There's a lot of vibration,
right? And
they don't want the rocket to vibrate itself to death and blow up. So they have something called a sound suppression system, which dumps a bunch of water under the rocket. The hot exhaust gases hit the water, turns it into steam. That's where you get that big plume. So you know how when you see a rocket up in the air, it doesn't have all that smoke?
Right.
When it's on the ground, it's making a bunch of steam.
Right.
So it
that's what it is.
Yeah, it basically just keeps the rocket from vibrating itself to death. And it makes it quieter for if, you have...
Yeah, that was very interesting to me. Was like the most dangerous thing to the rocket is sound. And I was like, what?
The vibrations. I mean, it's a violent process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the craziest ones was the space shuttle with those huge solid rocket boosters. Those are violent. Like they shake. And you can see in the videos when they launch people on the space shuttle, when they pop off, everything gets a lot more relaxed.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because they can't stop them. Like once you turn them on, they don't turn off. Yeah, you can't abort.
Right, that's it. You're in.
You're in once those things go off, and they shake like crazy. And it's surprising to me that they're still using those on the SLS rocket, but that kind of thing, you definitely need a sound suppression system.
That's
Or
crazy.
you'll shake your rocket to death.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, and SpaceX, they're smart because you don't have a sound suppression system on the moon. So
Right.
you need to kind of design your rocket around
That.
making sure it's not going to shake itself to death.
Yeah.
SpaceX thinks of all these kind of crazy things like that really make them stand out as a company. It's very admirable.
So whoever's listening to this, if there's anybody listening to this,
Yeah.
but whoever's listening to this can kind of tell now that you're kind of immersed in the subject, right?
Yeah.
You're very young. So how are you learning this much? How are you absorbing this much information? Where are you getting it? And I really think more for like somebody that wants, maybe the kid who's in he's a junior now, like you were.
Yep.
How are you finding all this information, or where are you most likely getting it?
I get most of my information from YouTube. Like I was saying earlier, NASA Spaceflight, they're an amazing resource. They even have this subscription thing where you can do, it's super cheap, but it's called the L2 section of their website. And it has so much like detailed schematics, drawings, plans, everything. NASA Spaceflight is, if you want to get technical with stuff, NASA Spaceflight's a great resource. And then there's so many different YouTube channels you can go to. One of my personal favorites, his name's Scott Manley, super smart guy. He, very, very, very intelligent guy. You can learn a lot of stuff. He covers all the SpaceX things when they happen. Not everything, but, and then another really good one is Everyday Astronaut. He actually has a studio right outside the exclusion
was
zone.
this guy in Florida and now moved here?
Yep. He lived in
Or he's
some
living in
northern
both?
part of the United States, and then he moved to Florida to be able to see launches. And it's funny because he moved there right when Starship was starting to have flights.
Right.
And he'd fly out to Texas for a flight. And then they'd happen so frequently. He was like, there's no point in me flying home. So I'm pretty sure he's moving here full time now. And that's really good because this is the place you want to be.
Yeah, we're getting a lot. Well, that's kind of what this podcast is about. All these people that are moving here and how things are changing quickly, like very rapidly.
Very.
So speaking of that, the new venture is tours. Mm-hmm. So you can actually have Nolan explain to you on site what's going on and actually see the things that SpaceX are doing and have him explain. So this is going to start now, right? This is pretty much on now. And so you can actually book Nolan and have Nolan explain to you what you're looking at.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep.
And it always changes. Obviously, as we saw, like we were there a couple days ago, and today now there's a rocket, right? So when we were there was no rocket, and you still gave an extensive explanation what the hell is going on there.
Did my best, yeah.
And now there is a rocket. So this stuff changes constantly. So I think it's a very cool concept to have somebody tell you what you're looking at, right? Because most of us don't know, and it's so cool that if you get to come here to have it kind of explained. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have the link to where you can hook up with Nolan to get a tour. We have the t-shirts on beyondmedia.space. Look us up. We're gonna be expanding all our media throughout. We've got some projects with Nolan. We got some projects with a bunch of other people that we're doing. So we're very thankful, Nolan, that you were here today.
Oh yeah, glad to be here.
You blow me because I'm really old and I don't know anything, and you're so young and you know so much about this. This landed on us, so we are trying to catch up as fast as we can, and we need people like you. Yeah. So we're very grateful to have you around. There's a lot of cool people around, as you've started to notice. Mm-hmm. So I think that at least culturally, technologically, the area is going to benefit a lot from this new stuff. So thank you very much, Nolan, for coming today. And hopefully we'll be doing this more often.
For sure, yeah. And they can book it gatewaytomars.co.
Yeah.
And then if they want to, see more stuff going on in spaceflight, they can follow me on Twitter, Nolan Trees. Very easy.
Nolan Trees?
Nolan Trees, yeah.
Trees like Trees?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. I made it when I was 14.
Oh, nice.
I don't know.
Nice.
But there's tons of really great resources I put out on there. So
Yeah, follow Nolan. Follow Beyond Media.
Yep.
We're going to be collaborating on all of stuff. So if you can't find him, you can find him through us. If you can't find us, you can find us through Nolan.
Yep.
So thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon.
Yes. Good one.